Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us again start with the topic microorganisms, friends and foe. Now in this class of biology, we are going to study about the safety measures which are to be taken so as to protect the articles or the food items against these microorganisms. Till now, we have studied about the effects of the microorganisms, the useful effects as well as the harmful effects. Now they can cause the disease. When we are saying harmful effects, they can cause the diseases or they can spoil the food item. In the previous sessions, we have already understood that which microorganism causes which type of disease and also how the precautions should be taken so as to prevent ourselves against these disease causing microorganisms. Now the second phase of this negative role of microorganism is food spoilage. So when the food item is also spoiled by the microorganisms, then we must know that how it should be preserved. So before starting this topic, that is food preservation, in brief, we must know that what we mean by the spoilage. What is this food spoilage basically? We are continuously saying that microorganisms, they can spoil our food. How do we know that food is spoiled? That is the first initial point. And we know that by time the food is surely going to be spoiled or attacked by the microorganisms. So before it happens, we must take several steps. So first, let us understand that how do we know the food is actually spoiled. These microorganisms, they will grow on these food items. Food is what? Food is basically a diet. It is a composition which is containing different kind of nutrients, complex as well as the simple. Carbohydrates, vitamins, proteins, lipids, different type of essential nutrients. Now all these are required for the growth of the microorganism. And food is present in the surrounding. As it gets exposed to surrounding condition like air or the water, what will happen? The microorganism will start using these constituents present in the food item. As a result, they will continuously use up the nutrients and will convert them into the more simpler forms, which may be toxic for us or which may not be, it may not be toxic, but it is not advised to use them. It may affect it or its texture is actually lost. So this is how the microorganisms are actually spoiling our food. Now the next point is that how do we know that the food item is actually spoiled? Is there any indication? These microorganisms are not going to call you on your mobiles or somewhere that yes, we have attacked the food and it is now damaged. How do we know? So it is actually indicated by the foul smell. The spoiled food will emit the bad smell or the foul smell. And this smell is the first indication of the spoilage of food. Besides that, the taste is going to be altered. You can personally experience this particular thing. The item which is freshly prepared, the taste is very fresh and different. And if it is kept for some time, the taste it gets changing further with time. So this change in the taste is another indication for the spoilage. Besides that, the color of that food item is also going to get changed. You can see when you are purchasing an apple, what is the color? It looks so pretty red, and when you cut it, it is fantastically white or cremation color inside, and you enjoy eating it. But if you keep it in open for some time, what will happen? You can observe the discoloration over there, and this discoloration is another indication of spoilage. Not only in apple or in the raw fruit or vegetable, it is also observed in the cooked food items. So whether the food is cooked or it is uncooked, these microorganisms, if they get the chance, they will start growing over these materials. Now, you must have seen the pulses at home. Even they are stored for a long period of time. So why they don't get affected by the microorganisms? Because at home itself you can see how many measures are taken to prevent these microbial growth in the food items. The people or your mothers might be doing it or not. Even if they are not doing, in the malls or anywhere the packed food items, you can see that they could be stored for the long period of time. Why? It is because They have been preserved. What do you mean by preserve? So they have been exposed to certain chemicals or certain physical activities due to which the internal atmosphere has been changed. For example, at home, what we usually do when we start storing these food items, especially the pulses or similar type of dry food items, what we are doing? We are mixing it with a different kind of oils. Usually the castor oil or the olive oil. It is actually used and it is rubbed over these food items, and then they are kept in the sunlight, and then they are stored in the proper airtight containers or in the normal household containers. So this type of practice which is followed is one of the example of the preservation. What is happening? The oil. How much exposure we have given? Number one, we have rubbed it with the oil. This oil will not allow the growth. It will inhibit with the bacteria or any other kind of organism. Besides, we have exposed it to drying or to the sunlight. So that is going to actually dry up it completely. That means the entire water content has been removed. Even if the moisture was present, that was completely removed. So as there is lack of water, the organism cannot grow. Similarly, it has been kept in the airtight container if possible. So this airtight container means there is a very less supply of oxygen, or there is a limited supply of oxygen. And if there is no oxygen available, the organisms cannot grow in these food items. So actually, there are many methods for this preservation, and they should be followed so as to keep the food items safe for long period of time. Now let us understand. So, preventing the food items from the growth of these organisms is known as preservation. Now, let us understand, let us study the different methods for the preservation of food item. So, these are commonly, they could be categorized as by the chemical method, preservation by sugar. It can be done by the use of oil and vinegar, or it can be done by exposing or by changing the temperature, by giving heat and cold treatments. So now we are going to study about all these categories. The first is the chemical method. Now we all know what these chemicals are. These are the compounds or the substances made up of certain elements. Now commonly, what type of chemicals are being used for this particular purpose? These chemicals, they are present at home itself. You can see in the form of normal salts or the edible oils. These are commonly used items or the chemicals which are used at home itself so as to control the growth of the organisms. And such chemicals which are used for controlling the growth of organisms in the food item, they are known as preservatives. So such chemical preservatives, the common example is actually salt and certain edible oils. Now let us understand salts we are using at home itself. Which type of salt are we using? Exactly, sodium chloride, which is iodized, and that is commonly used at home in the normal processes. So this particular salt could be used as an important preservative. Besides, many salts in different forms are available in the market, and they are even used up at the large scale so as to preserve the food. Some common examples of such chemicals are sodium benzoate, sodium metabisulfite. Besides, there are many more. Like we can say it could be like sodium nitrite, or it could be sodium nitrate, or besides certain salts like salts of sulfite, it could be used. Sodium sulfite or in some another form. So sulfite, nitrites and benzoate, these are some common salts which are used as the chemical preservative. Now, can you imagine how these salts are actually functioning, or which type of food items are preserved by using such type of salts? That is an important question now again. Basic mechanism of the action of such type of preservative is preventing the oxidation of food by the microorganisms. What these microorganisms are doing? They are growing over the items, they are oxidizing it. So these salts actually changes the pH of that material. Not only this, they will inhibit with the oxidation cycle inside the microorganisms, and therefore these salts will not allow the organisms to grow over the or to use up the food item inside, thereby checking the growth of the organisms. Now we can say, besides not only this much, the another way how these salts are functioning is they will absorb the extra water present in the food item, and once the water content is lost, then definitely the microbial growth could be controlled. You must be knowing this fact that these microbes, they can grow when the conditions are moist. So this moisture is being removed by the use of such type of salts, and this is how the preservatives are helping in checking out the growth of the organisms. The common ways, the common food items which are actually preserved by such methods are like non-veg items, for example like meat, or we can say like other things like beef, meat that is of various organisms, or beef that is for cow, the meat of cow. So there are many ways or many things which could be prevented by using the salts, especially the non-veg item, because the salts contain, the oxidation tendency is high in that. They are already containing the microbial organisms. Further, not only this much, they check out the growth of the microbes in such things. Along with that, they also impart pinkish color to the meat extracts of these different organisms like pork or beef or anything. So when these are rubbed with the nitrite or the nitrate salts and then they are stored properly, then the pink color will increase in such type of meat or the flesh, and this actually attracts the customer so as to purchase it. This is how the quality is actually exposed, or it is enhanced by using certain chemical preservatives. And no doubt the microbial growth is minimized by using such type of preservatives. The another method of preservation is by using the chemicals like sugar. Even at home, we can use these sugars in different parts. Normally the table sugar like sucrose is being used for such type of purpose. And as in the case of salt, it was actually acting as the antioxidant. It was preventing the oxidation of food by the microorganisms, as well as it was controlling the content of moisture inside. Similarly, the sugar also reduces the moisture content of the food item, and when this moisture is actually controlled, it will inhibit the growth of bacteria or other organisms over there, and thus the spoilage of food could be prevented. So can you think of what type of material is actually preserved by these particular methods? Generally the fruits, they are being preserved by such type of methods. You must be watching at homes also. Mothers are using these type of methods so as to preserve the food items. For example, the another thing that could be preserved by this is apricots or other kind of dry fruits, or fruits. In fruits we can say like peaches, apples. All these are being preserved by using the sugar. If you have cut the apple and you will rub it with the sugar, you will coat it with that, or you will keep it in the sugar syrup, then what will happen? It will form a layer over there, and whatever content of moisture was there, it would be absorbed by the sugar particles, and thus the microbial growth is controlled. But the disadvantage is there. Can you think of the disadvantage? It will increase the sweetness, the sugar content of the fruits, so that natural taste is going to be affected actually. But if you have to preserve it for the long term, then it could be used in different ways also. Now again, how it is done? You are using the jams, isn't it? We are using the jellies. So how these are actually being prepared? Fruits, they are mashed and processed properly and they are converted into the gel form. But further for preservation, it is added up with the sugar, and this additional sugar is actually going to absorb the moisture content or the water particles. Thereby, it is controlling the growth of bacteria inside, and hence we are able to store such type of items at home itself. Now further, the another method or the chemicals used up in the preservation is oil and vinegar. Now please don't think that any oil could be used for same purpose. It is only advisable to use the edible oils, those which are suitable to eat, because here we are studying about the food spoilage. So these oils which are commonly used, they are like, we can say olive oil, soybean oil, mustard oil. You must have seen at home itself. If your mother is preparing or grandmother is preparing the pickles, they are adding the extra layer of oil over the pickles and all these things. They are keeping it in the sunlight, right? And they are pickling it, they are covering the food item or the pickles completely with this particular oil. So what is the reason behind that? The reason is that because the bacteria cannot live in the this oily type of content. These oils, they changes the pH and therefore they do not allow the growth of bacteria. Similarly, vinegar is also used in the same condition. These vinegars, these are actually the acetic acid. It is a chemical, it's an acid. So by controlling or changing the pH, it is actually controlling the growth of bacteria inside. Now another important fact, when we add oil or vinegar in different food items, then the taste is little bit affected. The taste is somewhat little bit more and more sour. The pickles which are available in the market, they are not only added up with the oil, but they are also being added up with the vinegar. And this vinegar will give such a little bit bitter or a little bit more and more soury type of taste to the object or to the food item. Now these are being used for the preservation of vegetables, fruits, fish, meat, etc. Especially these vinegar and oil, they are being used for the preservation of pepper or especially like cucumber or these fish or meat type of items. So this is how it is actually useful to control the growth of microorganisms. Further, another method is heat and cold treatment. Simply heating can be advantageous. Simply cooling the items is also advantageous, or the mixed process of this heat and cold exposures, even they are fantastic way of preservation. So how it is done or how it is affecting actually? Heating, it is usually by boiling or drying. So if you have to give the heat treatment, that means you are actually exposing the food item to the high temperature. Now this high temperature, how it could be provided? Either it is in the form of boiling if they are the liquid items. You can see at home when we are taking the milk, we are preserving it, we are keeping it, but before that we are boiling the food, this particular item. It is being suggested that water should be used in a boiled way. But these are for very limited time period. Now, how this high temperature is actually acting? Basically, when the temperature is very high, whatever proteins are present in the membrane of the organism or internally in any organelle anywhere, then these proteins get denatured. That means they get completely damaged, and this damage of protein will completely kill the organism. So high temperature basically is used to kill the microorganisms. Now you imagine, boiling is not possible for each and every kind of this method. So basically what is done? This heat is provided in different ways. The purpose is basically the drying. In fact, when we are exposing the items to heat, we are actually drying it. When you expose to high temperature, the things automatically starts getting drying. Now how this drying is done? It may be in the form of sun drying, or it may be spray drying, or it may be freeze drying. In either of the case, basically what is happening? Whatever method is there, drying is actually, it is done by exposing to high temperature methods, and by that we are just evaporating the water content present in the food item. Can you imagine certain methods? In the industries, it is done in the sprayers or in the freezers or whatever method. Sun drying is not common in the large scale industry. But if you have to imagine in a simple way, what could be the example? Commonly, we are just keeping these grains or pulses in the sun, direct in the sunlight. And when we are exposing it to that, the water content is actually removed. And when the water content is removed, definitely what will happen? Microbes cannot further grow over that. So this high temperature not only helps in just killing the organism, but it also controls the growth of the organism in the food item. Further, another way for such is the smoking. Some food items are actually done by the smoking method also. Now in this case, the food item is exposed to the smoke. So it is partly dried over in the exposure to the smoke. Certain examples for this could be like meat. It is preserved by this method. Not only at home, but even at the large scale, you can see many packed food items are available. So over there, this smoking is a method, or it is an option used up by the seller. Even the fish or the non-veg items are generally, preserved by this particular method. Besides this, these food items, they can also be preserved by exposing to low temperature. Now this low temperature, it's actually going to affect the proteins only. These proteins could be the normal structural proteins, or they could be the enzymes required for the different metabolic activities. So in this case, when the temperature is very low, these proteins get inactivated. That means they become so stiff, they cannot function over there. They become non-functional. But when they are brought down to the normal temperature, then definitely the protein becomes activated and the normal phenomena will be started. So this low temperature will actually check the growth of the microorganism. Can you think of certain examples? You must have seen many food items preserved at low temperature. Many prepared vegetables are nowadays available in the market. We can see nowadays pea is available throughout the year. In the seasonal time, when the season is there, then definitely it is available directly. Or else these beets are actually collected and they are stored in the freezers at a very low temperature, -2 up to or more and more below line. So these are actually stored over there. So these can be used furthermore up to a very longer period of time. So these are how these low temperature or the high temperature can help us in the normal preservation of food items. Now, a special treatment, we have said this heating and cooling of the objects could be mixed up, and this was actually a method was known as pasteurization. It is a special method which is used for the preservation of various food items. The process was discovered by Louis Pasteur. He was the first to use such method. We are saying that normally nowadays milk is available in the packets. Now in the packets, what do you think? Is it available in a single day? No. These small scale industries, they are collecting the milk from the dairy farms, and then they are preserving it for the long period of time. Although there is a limit, there is a expiry date for that, but still that expiry date can be more and more as compared to the normal procedures followed at home. So here what this pasteurization means actually. In this case, Louis Pasteur, he heated the milk up to 70 degrees centigrade initially for 15 to 30 seconds, and then he suddenly chilled it out. He stored it at a low temperature below 5 degrees centigrade, and this is how he repeated the process for multiple times. And this exposure to high and low temperature alternatively actually checked the growth of microorganisms, and it was definitely a successful method. And after he invented this method is nowadays largely used in the industries also for the preservation of milk, as well as for the preservation of various kind of syrups or the disease these chemicals, or even for the vaccines also. Not all, definitely for some specific ones, but it's really a good method for the preservation of various items, food items as well as other methods also. Now this pasteurized milk, this is completely free of these harmful microorganisms, and surely it is suggested that it should be used up, it should be consumed even without boiling. Nowadays the people are so busy, mother, father both are working, there is a lack of time. So this pasteurized milk is a safe option. Not only this much, one more important thing, the cattle who is giving us milk, whether it is buffalo or cow or any, they may have certain disease. Now we don't know that initially they are having infection or not, and if such infected milk is directly consumed, it may be poisonous for us also. So if we are consuming the pasteurized milk, then definitely we can prevent ourselves from such harmful microorganisms. So pasteurization is really one of the methods that should be that is actually providing us the advantage. Now the next thing is that we have preserved the food. Now the next task for this method to continue it for the long period of time is how to store it. Storage and packing or packaging of such preserved food items is now again more important. So the reason is because when such items, although they have been preserved, but if they are not stored properly, then they may get exposed to certain other bacteria and may get damaged further again. So best way of such prevention or storage and packing is in the airtight containers or at the low temperature. Just now we have understood the advantages of these airtight containers and the low temperature. You can see it here. Advantage of airtight sealing. What is that? When food is stored in the airtight condition, what will happen? The supply of oxygen would be affected. It is going to reduce. Affected means what? In this case, it is reduced. So the reduced oxygen supply will inhibit the growth of the microorganisms. Hence, when the things are preserved in the airtight conditions, they are more and more safe to be used for more and more long period of time. Further, it can be stored at low temperature. So this low temperature, how it is advantageous? Because it is not going to allow the microbes to grow. How? Because it will inactivate the protein. Protein which is usually functioning as the enzymes. If these enzymes are affected, then the normal chemical reactions cannot take place inside the organism. So what will happen? Normal life process would be stopped. And definitely the living organisms cannot grow over there. Hence we can prevent the food material from getting damaged or spoiled. So nowadays you must have seen that various dry fruits, or even vegetables, they are sold in the sealed airtight packets. Now there are many methods which are used for such type of storage. Can you think of certain methods in which these methods could be used actually? The common ways for the storage or packing is, let us say, refrigerator. This is one of the methods which could be used for the purpose of storing of food items. And what this refrigerator is doing? It is providing the low temperature. When you think how the things should be stored in the refrigerator, let us take example. If it is a vegetable, then how it should be stored? Initially, it should be washed properly. Then it should be dried properly, and then if it is kept in the thin cloth and then it is stored, then we can maintain the freshness for a little bit long period of time. Next, if it is meat, even this flesh could be stored for quite a longer period of time at low temperature, even at home also. How? It is, suppose we have taken the meat and then we are applying the salt. First you have to wash it properly, dry it properly, and then just make a layer of salt over it or the turmeric powder. So this turmeric is itself a disinfectant, or if you are using the salt, we have studied the advantages of salt also. So and then it is stored in the low temperature. So this will actually increase the shelf life of the meat also. Then another method for this could be like pickling of the objects. It is another method which is used for storage. If we have to keep the food items for a long period of time, it could be used with this pickling method could be used. It is done with the help of oil or the vinegar. And the methods we are commonly observing even at home also. Now how the things should be stored. Even in the market or in the industries, the packing methods are being used. When you think of certain methods, like nowadays, vacuum packing is being used. So what happens in vacuum packing? The containers, like we can say like soft drinks or the canned foods, or we can say like these jams and all, they are actually packed by using the vacuum packing. In that, the air amount is completely removed from inside the bottles or whatever, and their oxygen supply is reduced. Further, canning is used. The things are packed in the cans, or we can say in the case of like bottles. And of course all these are airtight, or gelling could be used for certain different things. Besides, even at home, if you ask some old people at your home itself, you will find out one more interesting method of this storage, that is a burial method. People were using burial method. They were keeping that under the soil or for that thing, like potatoes and all. They are kept under the mud, and this also helps in controlling the shelf life of the food items. So these are certain common methods which are used as storage method or the packing method, and this actually helps in preserving the food material and using it for the long and longer period. This is all about preservation and spoilage of food and how the things should be preserved and utilized. This is all about the microorganisms, foe and friends, how they are useful, how they are harmful, how they spread, what are they, and so on. So now just go through your studies. Thank you so much.